Hi guys, welcome back to the Visualising Wales channel. Here we are at the bottom of Greenfield Valley Heritage Park. Greenfield Valley Heritage Park is 1.5 miles. You can explore an exciting 70-acre woodland and 2,000 years of history, with lake streams, ancient monuments and historic factories around every corner. The water that runs through the valley produced the power to establish the area as an industrial powerhouse of the 18th century, together with the raw materials and good access to the sea, the port of Liverpool and trading links with the west coast of Africa. The valley is known as the cradle of the Industrial Revolution in North Wales. Water is responsible for its importance as a place of religious pilgrim. Visit the museum and the visitor centre to learn more about the amazing history, 800 years of heritage to discover, finding out about agriculture, social and industrial history. There is a wealth of wildlife within the Heritage Park. 25 species of butterfly have been recorded, from the purple hair streak to the dingy skipper. The 5 reservoirs support a rich variety of wildlife, wildfowl and amphibians. So we're sort of down here at the bottom, so we're going to go up to the Abbey, the visitor centre, there's a cafe, Victorian school, and work our way up through the factories and that, ending up at St Winifred's Well at the top. So let's get into this. First place we come to is Bassingwork Abbey. 1132, monks of the Savignac order had arrived to begin a new monastery. Their mission was to live a simple life of holiness in a remote location. They moved to this site around 1157, but by then a takeover by the Cistercians and vast wealth had already set them on a less spiritual path. Unlike the Savignacs, the Cistercians had a stronger business model and coped better with the rapid expansion both were experiencing in 1147. The Cistercians agreed to absorb the struggling Savignacs. Cistercians built abbeys to a standard plan, which might take centuries depending on available funds. Some were never completed. Money was no object here. It was finished in a few decades of the 13th century. Exploiting its location near to the English border gained Bassingwork support from both Welsh princes and English kings. By the mid-13th century it held land and mineral resources across North Wales, Cheshire and the English Midlands. In 1240 Bassingwork gained control of St Winifred's Shrine at Holywell, a popular destination for pilgrims from across Wales and England. The unexplained range of buildings at the back of the abbey may be guest houses for wealthier visitors. King Henry V is likely to have stayed at the abbey when he gave thanks at St Winifred's Shrine for victory at the Battle of Agincourt. Let's go and have a look round. Even when the abbey buildings were complete, the money kept pouring in, a temptation too great to resist. Rumours of financial scandals and political intrigue were rife. Rival abbots took each other to court and one was arrested for treason. Bassingwork reached its golden age under Thomas Pennant Abbot from about 1481 to 1523. He turned the abbey into a centre of high culture. Welsh poets sang the praises, one describing Thomas as a godly man with a fine taste for ministry and a generous passion for the bards. Pennant's godliness did not stop him from fathering 7 children of local women. His third son, Nicholas Pennant, succeeded him as the last abbot. Despite its cultural status, Henry VIII still closed Bassingwork around 1536 when he abolished all abbeys in his kingdom. This local legend gives a clue to the way worldly distractions were the downfall of Bassingwork Abbey. In the 12th century, a monk from Bassingwork Abbey wandered into the local woodland, attracted by a nightingale's song. He listened enchanted for a short while, or so he thought. Returning to the abbey, he discovered that many centuries had passed, and the abbey was in ruins. The monk then crumbled to dust. Let's go and have a walk around the ruins. Just want to avoid the slope, guys. This bit here is where the Lay brothers would have stayed. So, you know, there's like the wall there where they would have stayed, and there's like a flat bit over there where I assume it would have gone to. There's a square section just here that would have been the cloister of the abbey. So heading over to these walls, this is where the abbey would have been. So, going by the map that was up there, this would have been the entrance to the abbey here, and going down to the other side of the abbey. Yeah, quite a big wall there, so looks like it was quite a huge building when it was here. You can see the walls of where the abbey section would have ended. We're going down the other side of the cloister now. Here's where the cloister is, and up there is where the Lay brothers were. I think this bit is where the brothers would have lived. So you have the Lay brothers there and the brothers here. Heading down here, this is where the abbot and the monks and the brothers came to eat. many visitors they had. This is where the abbot would have stayed. And then the building that's just over there, which we will head to, is the visitors. So here we are in where the brothers would have been staying. Over here, where we're heading now, is where any important visitors would have stayed. So I read up there, this is where Henry V would have stayed when he came to thank St. Winifred's shrine. I think we're going to head off to the visitor centre now and show you the inside of the visitors centre. So guys, we've just come through the visitor centre. The visitor centre. This building was constructed with stone from the outbuildings belonging to Cumfloyd and Farmhouse, which stood on the slopes of Mold Famine in the Clwydian Hills near Mold, prior to being donated to the Greenfield Valley by Welsh Water plc in 1993. So let's have a look round. So guys, opposite the farmhouse is the dipping pond. Looks like we've got our very own tour guide. Looks like there's a dragonfly over there. Cumfloyd and Wildflower Areas. This created wildflower area contains many of our native plants. By allowing the grass to grow, many flowers have naturally emerged, others have been planted. There are over 40 varieties of wildflowers here at present. These native plants may attract many types of butterflies, bees and wildlife. The Wildflower Area contains different habitats from open meadow to the shade and woodland, as it might have been when the farmhouse was built 200 years ago. Wild plants were gathered and used by people for many uses: culinary, medical, cosmetic and many more. The garden has been researched and created with the help of volunteers led by Ray Bailey of the Holywell and District Society. Clydon Farmhouse. This 19th century building was a roofless ruin located on the slopes of Moelfamau in the Clwydian Hills near Mold prior to being donated to Greenfield Valley by Welsh Water plc. It was rebuilt here in 1993 and is a typical of a Welsh upland farm. Let's go and have a look inside. We have to go in through the other door. So this is what the farmhouse looks like on the outside. So let's go and see what it's like. So we've come in to the scullery. This was a utility room of the farmhouse. Many of the daily tasks could be done here, such as washing clothes, baking bread, preserving meat and making butter. The scullery could function separately from the rest of the house, as it was important to keep this room spotlessly clean. The mangle. Big rollers squeezed out water from wet clothes. The boiler helped heat lots of water for wash day on Monday. The sink, no taps or drain, all water is carried from a stream. The farmer's wife had lots of tools to help her. Can you spot them? We'll have a look as we go round. Bread oven. Bread was the main type of food eaten by everyone in Victorian times. No ready sliced here though. The larder, no fridges, so a little cupboard kept flies and mice away from salted and smoked meats. So, there's a boot scraper there. And sink maybe. Looks like a little fire and heating your water. The bread oven in there. A mangle there. I think they were used for beating rugs and that. Some scales and that. Butter hands used to shape the butter. It's not me. No. The Victorian kitchen. Family life would revolve around the kitchen, where the family would gather for meals and discuss the news of the day. The kitchen range provided heat for cooking, as well as hot water for warmth for the weary farm workers. Meals simply, usually cow or traditional Welsh stew, made from meat and seasonal veg. The barometer hanging by the stairs. That over there was a device very important, as it could tell the farmer what weather it was going to be like. Welsh dresser. which is there. Usually been made by local craftsmen. They were often used as a dowry for a farmer's daughter on her marriage. The salt blocks. Storing the salt in a warm place helps keep the salt dry. Salt adds flavour to food and can be used to preserve food before the invention of refrigerators. Bread and butter there with some chutney. The fireplace and cooking. Drying our laundry by the fire. Cupboard under the stairs. And they would probably come in here to sit by the fire, write their letters, play some music. I think over there is a sewing machine. Let's go and have a look upstairs. Hi Dan. So the bedroom, the Victorian family was often large and extended. The 3 bedrooms were necessary to allow some comfort and privacy. Although the main bedroom has a small fireplace, the drapes around the bed, which would have been hanging off there, and the 4-poster bed were necessary to keep out drafts. With no running water in the house, bath times would take a lot of effort in carrying the water. Bathing was seen as a way to keep clean in both body and spirit. If it was not possible to bathe every day, a sponge bath using the washstand and pitcher would be adequate. I'm assuming this would be bedroom number 2, which has got cork house in it. This model house was made in 1915 from cork gathered from along the Flintshire coastline. Can you help? Do you recognise this house? If you think you know the house it was modelled on, please let us know. A little fireplace there. Ham pan. This Buckley pan mug or ham pan were used for salting hams. And here's the final room of the house. The last bedroom of the bed. Little chest of drawers there. Table with a jug and bowl there to have a wash. Nice beams in the ceiling. Let's go and find the next bit. The valley and the world. Liverpool slaving ships took goods to Africa and exchanged them for slaves. They were then taken to America to work on the cotton plantations and exchanged for raw cotton. Some of the cotton that was brought back to Liverpool supplied the Greenfield cotton mills. Copper bolts and sheeting made here were used on the sailing ships around the world. Esparto grass came from Spain and Africa to be made into paper. Wood pulp from Canada and Scandinavia was imported to make rayon at Courtaulds, which was then exported to many different countries. The valley and the rest of Wales. Boats and ships travelled around the coast of Wales transporting raw materials and goods before they were other reliable means of transport. Copper ore from Paris Mountain went to St Helens from Amlwch to be made into ingots and then came here. Carts from local mines carried coal. A railway was opened in 1869 linking local quarries and the Greenfield mills to the docks. It also transported pilgrims up the valley to the well. Another bit of information over here, guys. The valley and the north west England. In the late 1700s, around 40 vessels were employed carrying cargoes including copper and cotton to and from Liverpool. Goods could be carried from there across the world. Liverpool was the centre for the slave trade until its abolition in 1807. Brassware was made for Liverpool merchants who used to barter with West Africans in exchange for slaves. Ferry services were introduced in the early 1800s and passages including pilgrims from Liverpool and Lancashire going to St Winifred's. Well, let's have another look round. Spring Garden School. The school was opened in 1877. It was built for less than £1,000 and was able to accommodate 150 infants. It began with only 4 pupils but grew to more than 80 in the first year. Mrs. Emma Parry was the first teacher at the school. She was devoted to the children in her care but was very strict. She kept a logbook recording everything that happened at the school each day. She retired in 1918 after working at Springfield Garden School for 41.5 years. By 1945 there were twice as many pupils as when it was opened, and a new canteen had been built. By the 1960s the school had really outlived its purpose. Teaching methods had changed, so more rooms were needed and the building wasn't big enough to meet local demand. The school was abandoned and there were plans to demolish it. The Greenfield Valley Trust applied to take possession of the building and it was moved here. Victorian schoolroom. This schoolroom, built in 1879 and previously known as the Spring Gardens Infant School, served the children of Holywell where it originally stood until its closure in 1975. It was moved brick by brick to its present location where it was reconstructed and furnished in 1995. So guys, let's go and have a look inside. Benches. What the students would have sat on. Fireplace down there. Blackboard. Some of the dress, what they would have worn. Desk where the teacher would have sat, and somebody has obviously been naughty at school. And here we are at the back of the class now, and you can see teacher used to sit on the desk there, piano there for music lessons. So, that's the Victorian schoolroom. Alright, next bit in the visitor centre is this water wheel here, connected to the industrial power. So, 2 seconds guys and we'll continue the talk. Taper water wheel story. The Taper water wheel was donated to Greenfield Valley Museum by Mrs. Joan Tapper in 2011 and is a significant example of water power development. Joan was born in 1920 and the wheel belonged to her father Gwilym Morris, who was a farmer, engineer and local magistrate.
So they had the Tapper water wheel.
By the time Joan was born, her father was already making plans to build a mill pond for the water wheel on his farm near the village of Uskbiniog. He had acquired the water wheel from 2 local spinster sisters, and as he was quite inventive, he intended to use the wheel to generate electricity. The power board displayed here was used to control the electricity and store energy in acid batteries. It was rare for electricity to be available in rural areas in the 1920s, so Gwilym was a real innovator. He'd used his technical engineering knowledge to install a wheel on his farm. He'd used it to power not only lights and machinery but a local chapel on Sundays. This must have been a big improvement to life on the farm and the local people he shared the electricity with. The water wheel was used into the 1950s, and by the 1980s Mrs. Tapper had donated the wheel to Erddig, and from there it was moved to a mill in Pentravolas. By 2011 plans were underway for the wheel to come to Greenfield Valley and the conservation project to begin, with grant money from Prism, AIM and Toyota. A professional metal conservator was employed to help the group of local volunteers restore the water wheel to working order and complete Mrs. Tapper's dream. So this must be the power board that was used. The John Edward Barwise collection. The objects displayed here are part of a large number of objects collected by local farming enthusiast John Edward Barwise, 1943 to 2016. John Edward Barwise spent 50 years collecting many historical objects and farming memorabilia. John was always interested in farming equipment. As a boy, whilst growing up at My Squin Farm, Flint, during the 1950s, when their father was ill, he took over driving the tractor to cut the corn, even though he was only 10 years old. Although their farm was sold in 1957, John's interest in farming continued and he began collecting nameplates and farming equipment. He would go to as many farm sales as he could, and you would often find him rummaging through scrap heaps looking for nameplates and old machinery. His ambition was to start his own museum where his collection could be displayed with other farming memorabilia. The John Edward Barwise collection includes various farming implements, tractor seats and a large number of machinery plates. To display the nameplates, he fixed them to wooden headboards and painstakingly painted the tractor seats and labelled by hand, showcasing individual emblems and the quality of the metalwork. The implements and hand tools had various uses on the farm, from cultivating and weeding to planting and sowing. Huh? Too much to read in here for you guys. It looks like a museum of water power, steam power, textiles, and the history of the valley. Industrial people. Family time. Here we are, a bit further round, and this is the hatchery. So they're saying, be quiet, as it might frighten the baby animals easily. It looks like there's baby chickens in there. Looks like they can come out into this area. Just talking quietly so I don't scare them. So here's a big plastic cow. Bakehouse and pigsty. This building was one of the outbuildings belonging to the Pentre Farmhouse, which was moved from the village of Lixham on the outskirts of Holywell and probably dates from the 18th century.
What's that? Bakehouse and...
Pigsty. I don't think we can go in.
That's okay.
The forge and the blacksmith. A blacksmith is a man who works iron in a forge. Many blacksmiths were also friars who made farriers, I think it is, who also made fitted horseshoes. Blacksmithing is a very old craft dating back into the early history. Nearly every village would have had its own forge and blacksmith. They produced tools and implements made from iron and bronze for many different needs, from household utensils to fighting weapons. Many other village crafts and jobs were dependent on the skills of the blacksmith. And that's the forge. Combine barn.
One of the most significant objects in the Greenfield Valley Trust collection.
The person will be sat there operating this to cut down the corn or whatever it was they were cutting. So here in the visitor centre they have Jacob sheep. Both male and female have horns. Generally sheep live in large groups called flocks, but Jacobs prefer to live a little further apart from each other. They are less social and more independent, being less reliant on the flock if there's danger. The Jacob sheep breed is steeped in history, with its origins in the Middle East and quite possibly the oldest sheep breed in the world, with historical references dating back to the 1800 BC. So this is the field they're in, but they're being a bit shy today, so hopefully we can see them at another point. Medieval Abbey Gardens, circa 1350 AD. Bassingwork Abbey was built by Cistercian monks in medieval times, and the remains can be visited today opposite the visitor centre, which we've already been to earlier in the video. The gardens here are a small scale example of the two types of garden from the 14th century abbey, as a hospital and a doctor's did not exist in medieval times. People were sick or wounded would have healed themselves or visited the monks to be healed. Other wild plants were collected from surrounding countryside. Vegetables and crops would have been grown on abbey lands, such as the Grange, Holway or Tray Abbot Vower near Whitford. I'm saying don't pick any of the flowers. So we come down here from the medieval Abbey Garden. We come to a little maze that they've created. Oh. We've made a little tower here, and you can see the maze. Let's go in and have a look. Before we go, this was the field where the Jacob sheep are, so they're in neither section of the field, and just there are the ruins of Bassenwick Abbey. So let's get back onto what we were going to do. Go through the maze. Let's see how lost we can get. Entry. Let's hope we can find the exit. That tower is the exit, and that's where we came in. Bit of a dead end there. So, we've hit the back wall of the maze here. So, all that's left to do is find our way out. Dead ends. There's the exit tower. I'm peeking over at the entrance tower. Another dead end. And here we go. Last couple of corners, I think. And the exit tower. Exit! Yay! So here we are. The exit. Let's go and find the next bit of info for you guys. The Physic Garden. The monks cultivated herbs and plants for making medicine in an area of the Abbey called the Physic Garden. Plant beds have been divided into sections to treat particular types of ailments. This would help apprentices to learn more readily and avoid possible mistakes. The Physic Garden sections are divided into ailments: skin disorder, wounds and battle wounds, liver and kidney, digestive and stomach, coughs, cold and flu, and aching joints. Oh, I've got skin disorders down there. Battle wounds here. We come over here. Meditation gardens. This is an area for monks to meditate and relax. The plants here are grown for their anaesthetic value and fragrances calm the soul and many specific Christian meanings. So there's tansy, which I think is the yellow flower there. Once used to in insect repelling potpourris and other scented articles traditionally used as an insecticide or insect repellent, and was one of the screwing herbs used on floors. Was also used to rub over meat to keep the flies away. Bay tree, widely used as a culinary herb, once used as protection against witches. The leaves were used to make the victor's crown, also used as an antiseptic and relieve rheumatic pain. And meadowsweet, flowers, fragrant, many different uses, formerly used to treat influenza, arthritis, heartburn and much more. Was used in mead and wine cups in 1839. It was from the flower buds of meadowsweet that salicylic acid was first discovered in 1839, from which aspirin was later synthesized. I think if we come over here, that's the meadowsweet, I think. So let's get on to the next bit. Tamworth Pigs. Tamworth Pigs are classified as vulnerable by the Rare Breed Survival Trust, with only 200 to 300 breeding sows in the UK and Europe. Generally, the pigs we have at the Valley are from the Princess bloodline and pedigree registered with the British Pig Association. Didn't know there was a British Pig Association. Tamworth are directly related to the original native forest pig and is the only traditional breed not to be improved with Chinese breeds. As such, it has retained its original genetics and remains slow growing and a little wild. They do well in rough pasture and woodlands, and unlike other native breeds, are somewhat resistant to sunburn. I'm just over there at that minute, out of plain sight. Here, Porky! Here, Porky!
What will we need? Oh, I know, the 3 little pigs. I didn't realise those pigs in the Here, pig.
You okay, Porky?
No.
You're having an itch there. Got a bit of an itchy bum there.
I didn't know you could talk to the animals, though.
Just call me Dr. Doolittle.
Yeah.
You okay down there? I haven't got anything interesting. No. So guys, we're in an agricultural barn here. So, old combine harvester. And there's that items that were used for agriculture back in the day. It's also Jones Brothers, and they specialise in machinery for growing wheat, and combine harvester there. So we get whipped up by the spinning bit at the front, through the mechanics, and then out the back here. Blacksmith's Forge. This building is now a working forge. The large cast iron hearth was made by James Keith and Blackman Co Limited, and it came from the British steel plant at Shotton on Deeside. It was installed here in 1995. Let's go and have a look. That's the forge, anvil. A blacksmith is a man who works in a forge. Many blacksmiths were also farriers who made and fitted horseshoes. Blacksmithing is a very old craft dating back to early history. Nearly every village would have its own forge and blacksmith. They would produce tools and implements made from iron and bronze for many different needs, from household utensils to fighting weapons. Many other village crafts and jobs were dependent on the skills of the blacksmith. The blacksmith used large bellows to make the coke, the fuel, very hot. Forges were hot, dirty and dangerous. So this forge has a modern safety system to make it safe for working environment. One of the first tasks for an apprentice smith would be to forge his own tongs and pincers for use in the forge. Bakehouse and pigsty. This building was one of the outbuildings belonging to the Pentra farmhouse and was moved here from the village of Lixham on the outskirts of Holywell. Probably dates to the 18th century, and it has its own plastic cow outside. Abbey Farm, a dairy. The dairy was used to make butter and cheese for the farm and to sell locally. The room had to be kept clean and cool. Many different tools were needed to process the milk into butter and cheese. Milk cooler. The milk comes out of the cow at 38 degrees C, 101 degrees Fahrenheit. The milk cooler helps cool the milk quickly to help preserve and store it longer. Barrel butter churns. After the cows were milked, the milk was left to settle in a cool place to allow the cream to rise to the top. The cream is then put into a butter churn where it's churned around until the yellow fat separates from the buttermilk and forms a lump called a butter pat. This can take 40 minutes to an hour of churning. Butter hands. These wooden paddles are used to shape the pat of butter into a block. Using real hands would melt the butter. Cheese maker. The milk is put into the cheese bath and rennet. A natural enzyme is added to help solidify the milk solids. Cutters are used to separate the curds and whey. The curds made the cheese and the whey is drained off. Finally, the cheese is salted and put into a mould to mature. Historic Garden project in 2016 as part of our Heritage Lottery project. A group of volunteers was formed to create gardens in the unused space around the museum's historic farmhouses. These dedicated volunteers have transformed formerly blank spaces into beautiful, historically accurate gardens for the enjoyment and education of visitors. The first stage was to remove the turf and prepare the ground. The volunteers had training on making wattle fencings around the farmhouse to create an attractive boundary. So, the wattle fences. The type of plants chosen were carefully researched for each area and time period. There are three main areas: the Victorian farmhouse, the Tudor farmhouse and the medieval Abbey Gardens. The gardens are constantly evolving and changing with the seasons and are maintained by volunteers. They encourage a wide range of insect and wildlife that add to the biodiversity of the museum grounds. Tudor kitchen garden. In the 16th and 17th century, the most common dish was a thick stew or soup called pottage. This could be all kinds of vegetables and sometimes a little meat boiled with oats to make gloopy bland soup. Strong tasting and fragrant herbs such as rosemary, sage, thyme and parsley were important for flavouring and the pottage and disguising any rancid food. Leftover pottage was often kept boiling on the stove for days, with more ingredients being added to the stock. Fruit and vegetables were only eaten when they were in season. Fruit grown abroad like bananas were unknown, and it was only later that potatoes, tomatoes and peppers were introduced from the Americas. Pentre Farm's Tudor Herb Garden. The Tudor Herb Garden contains herbs used before the year 1630. Many of the plants and vegetables we use today would not have been available in the period. The farmhouse garden was essential to be run in the house, with many aspects in the house. For many aspects of life and time before modern science and medicine, the women in the house were expected to know all the different uses of the herbs and plants. Here it's been divided into three main areas: culinary, medicinal and cosmetic. Other wild plants could be collected from the countryside. Farmhouse gardens like this attracted abundant wildlife because of the variety of plants, including bees, butterflies and many types of insects. The medieval garden. At the time this farmhouse was built, there were no modern hospitals and doctors were expensive and few in number. However, As most people lived in the countryside, they could grow plants to make their own medicines. Medieval herbs required special knowledge and careful use to avoid unfortunate results. The knowledge would be learned and passed on to the next generation. In towns and cities there might be a doctor or physician, but in most villages a wise woman could be asked for health advice for a fee. Female occupations were few and far between, so the wise woman was often a widow who needed to earn money and support herself. In Tudor times, the knowledge and use of plants were seen as magical, and so these women were sometimes accused of being witches. Protective herbs. Herbs had many uses, some are still used today, and others are pure supposition. Some of these suppositions include protection from witches, lightning and evil spirits. Lavender for headaches, rosemary protection from witches, evil spirits and enemies. Viper's burgos, this tall purple flowered plant was used as a treatment for snake bites. And comfrey, sometimes called knit bone or bone set, used to treat sprains, broken bones, arthritis and many other ailments. Pentre Farmhouse Flower and Pleasure Garden. This garden contains plants that produce skin oils, soaps, fragrance and pretty flowers for decorating the table. Before modern science discovered germs, people believed that illness was spread by bad odours and smells. People made pouches of nice smelling herbs and spices called a pomander to protect themselves from these disease carrying smells. From the list below, imagine what plants would be included in your pomander. Bergamot, rose, rosemary, chamomile, soapwort. So this is the Pentre Farmhouse. This building was previously located at Lixham, a small village on the outskirts of Holywell, and dates back to the early 16th century. It, however, has been reconstructed here as it would have looked in the 17th century and furnished with period furniture. Is an accurate reflection of life at that time. Assuming that's the fireplace. And here we go upstairs. Spinning wheel, wardrobe, Abbey barn. This 18th century threshing barn has a high roof to provide space to store the harvest. It also has vented walls to the air, the crops, doors large enough for a fully laden cart to enter, and stone floor where the crops would be threshed with flails. There's the slots to be airing the crops. Stone floors, airing slots, and machinery from farming throughout the ages. So here we have a water wheel. House. This was built in 1925 as a wedding present to Hugh Rutt, assistant manager of the nearby Abbey paper mill. Men employed by the paper company did a lot of the construction. Within a few years of the house was extended to provide a garage, rooms for a nurse and nursery for Hugh Rutt's 3 children. Although the internal construction of the house has been modified to allow for modern offices, many of the original features still remain. Ada, Hugh's first wife, planted the gardens. They include an orchard, a greenhouse, a tennis court, a magnificent tree in front of the house planted by Ada and grew for 72 years. Before being cut down to allow more light into the house. She also planted apple trees in the back and 3 flowering trees at the front, one for each of her 3 children. And that's the house. So in the park you've got these 2 pigs here. You've got him on his back rolling about. You've got that pig down there. And you've got this one here snaffling in the grass. Paris Mine Company Works. There were several copper production factories here owned by Paris Mine Company. Goods were made using the extensive deposits of copper ore discovered on Paris Mountain in Anglesey in 1768. The price of copper was low, and Thomas Williams and his partner were clever businessmen. William took virtual control of Britain's copper industry from 1787 to 92 and became known as the Copper King. During this period, the factory here made copper sheets were protecting wooden sailing ships like Admiral Mason's HMS Victory. One of the most important innovations here were the copper bolts that held the sheets in place. Williams patented the method, and this meant that all sailing ships in Britain that required copper sheeting had to buy bolts from him. Other products made here, such as pans and bowls, were sold in countries across Europe, West Africa and America. Copper manillas, a sort of bracelet made in the Greenfield Valley, taken to Liverpool and then used as currency in Africa to barter for slaves. The slaves were taken to America and exchanged for raw cotton, some of which came back to the Greenfield for production. And here's the local pond. And it has a swan on it. So guys, the next stop on the Greenfield Valley Heritage Park as we're going up is Abbey Ruins Mill. The Parish Mine Company built this mill in 1780. Copper and brass wire were made here. You can still see the pit where the overshot water wheel was sited, which powered the machinery. Today it contains a restored water wheel and is an outdoor event site. To make the wire, copper and brass rods were heated and pulled by the water powered machinery until thin enough to make into pins and nails by local craftsmen. In 1856, Newton Keats and Company leased this site and made improvements to raise the height of the dam to create a large pool. Unfortunately, water broke through and flooded the works in 1857 and 1858, so the height had to be reduced. The terrace of cottages called Tycoid was built to house the workers, and remains of these form part of the woodland trail you can see opposite the mill site. Oh, I'm not quite sure where that is, guys. The works closed in 1894 and the machinery was auctioned off. In 1910 the soap works opened here, producing souvenir soaps imprinted with a picture of St. Winifred. The first batch of soap produced was sent to the Pope in Rome as a gift. So, it's saying about it being an outdoor event, right? So, I'm assuming they do it underneath the little pavilion thing there. There's a bit of a grass area. If we peer over there, there's a bit of a waterfall there, and coming from the little stream there. And if we head round this way, guys, and peer through the fence, there's the water wheel that they were mentioning. So guys, the next stop on the trail up is the Lower Cotton Mill. Built in the space of 10 weeks in the summer of 1785, this was the third of 4 mills built by the Cotton Twist Company, started by John Smalley and Peter Atherton in the 1770s. Atherton and Smalley had been partners with Richard Arkwright, the inventor of the spinning frame, a revolutionary piece of machinery for textile manufacture. Smalley installed it in his new mills here and made it work more efficiently than it had before. The mill had 6 stories and many windows to light a large machine room. These spinning machines were turned by a large water wheel, 18 foot high by 7 foot wide, with a 16 foot fall of water. Many local people were employed here, including young children. It was dangerous work because of the constant noise and movement of the machines. Local women and children could also often be seen sitting, working on their doorsteps, picking the bits out the raw cotton to clean it ready for spinning at the mills. By the 1850s, the buildings had been taken over by a flour merchant who renamed it the Victorian corn mill. The pool is still known as Flour Mill Pool, which we'll have a look at after we've been down into the ruins. Later on, the buildings had various uses, including a wheelwright and brickworks. So we'll go down into the ruins now. So we'll head off, guys. That's quite a nice walk through some woods here. Just up there by that side. Maybe some of the machinery and that out of the mill. Looks like quite a big wheel. Might have been some outbuildings that cotton or flour were stored in. Still quite a size of the ruins left. So when it's saying it's 6 stories high, I assume that that wooden beam was 1 floor. So, you know, it looks like there's like 2 stories of this left. So, looks like it was quite a massive structure when it was fully complete. So, looks like machinery left over to give people an idea of the type of machinery that was here. Looks quite, I think we can just get through a wall just a little bit in there in that room. And there's still a fair size of room here, so can't imagine the noise of all the machinery and that was going on. Quite a big structure here. So, as we came into this section, I said about a little room next door, so I'll just show you guys that quickly, and then we'll go a bit more around this site. I think we turn in and just get to a wall here, so maybe a storeroom or something. And that's what we were looking through. We come around here and you can see the bits of machinery we could see earlier on. You saw the little waterfall as I came across the bridge, so it comes down that bit, goes there under that building, drops down there under this bridge, and then heads off down there. So I'll just take you up to the pond that fed the water down to this section. Guys, when I was down in the cotton mill down there, I said about the flour mill pool. So here we are, going up on the walkway to the flour mill pool. So, just over there, some water runs off, and quite a sized pool that has some local birdies. And as you can see, goes to those trees there. I think there is a gap in the trees there that goes back a bit further, and you get some nice local ducks here as well. So guys, when I was up there, I said about the little waterfall runoff. This is it, and it runs down that waterway there. And there is a bit of a runoff there as well. So guys, the next step is Meadow Mill. This site of the Greenfield Copper and Brass Company rolling and hammer mill. Built in 1787, it was an important part of Thomas Williams' Copper Kingdom, a network of copper mining and production. Meadow Mill provided worked copper and brass to his other mills in the valley, such as the wire mill, which we've already seen further down the valley, and the battery mill, which we're heading to a bit further up the valley. They also made copper rollers for printing patterns onto cloth, plate brass and wire for pins. When the writer Thomas Pennant visited the valley, he wrote that a Roman Holocaust heating system had been found during the building of the foundation. The pool was built at the same time as the factory to provide water power and needed to turn 3 water wheels, each 20 feet in diameter. These powered machines to roll and cut the copper into thinner strips and sheets. The factory was taken over by Newton Keats in the 1850s. For a time it was a lead works and then a tin plate works. It then became a brass rolling and wire drawing mill. In the 1890s the site was leased to William Eyre, who made it into a rubber grinding and processing works. So let's go and have a look around. So there's some walls over there, what I assume were part of it, and if we head into here, this looks like the main part of the factory here. Doorway there, we've got an outer wall there, and we're going to be up there in a minute where the pool that supplied the water for the water wheels came from. So if we go a bit further in, you can see the rest of the site. It looks like it was a fairly big factory. And if we head over here, there's another building here. See the walls there, guys. There was another building here. And there's the same walls I showed you a moment ago. And just here, waterfall, and I'll just take you up to show you the main body of the pool now. It's just up these steps. Well, you know, you guys are thinking of coming here. If you don't like steps, then you're in trouble, aren't you? So meadow and mill are all here. And there's the top of the waterfall. We're just at the bottom of. And here's the pool. So you can see the top of the factory here. And we can go into here. It's a fair-sized pool. So guys, here we are at the clock tower, which was built for the workers of the battery mill that we're coming up to, so that they could always see the time and get to work on the time. So let's go and explore we've got the battery mill coming up, the chimney and the Strand cottage coming up, all in a relatively close bit here. So here we come up to see this is the other side of the clock tower. So this is one of the buildings connected to the battery mill. Looks like some well or maybe some sort of fire pit that they used. Here's the battery mill that we're approaching now. So unfortunately guys, it's all fenced off, so I can't actually take you inside like I've done with the other mills. I'm just going to have to show you the outside view of it through the fences. Approaching a little building here, maybe like a factory office or something. or a little residence, not entirely sure. This is the inside of it. And here's the back wall of it. The entrance where we came in. Here we are at the battery pool, which would have given some of the water power to the site. Sounds like the water is going through there. So here we go, this is the little walkway, and we can't see much of the water due to all the reeds that have grown. Let's go and have a look at the battery mill factory. Greenfield Mill, established in 1776. This mill, known as the Battery Works, was one of Thomas Williams' copper works. He sent copper from other factories in the valley here to be worked into goods under the heavy tilling battery hammers. The wheel pits are still visible where the wheel to wheels turned to move the hammers and left marks on the brickwork. Battery Row was a row of terraced houses with a small shop built alongside the pool to house the factory workers. The backs of the houses went right up to the pool. There were no indoor toilets and there were often problems with rats. The row was demolished in the 1960s. Above the dam are the remains of a small house called Strand Cottage, which is just up there, that I'll take you to in a minute. The clock tower that can be seen from the dam was built to make sure the local workers made it to work on time to their shifts because their wages were paid by the hour. The Industrial Revolution was possible due to clockwork running of the factories and railways. So if we go down here a little bit, you can see some more of the buildings and the clock tower that we came past is just down there in those trees. So let's head up to the Strand cottage past the chimney. This is the path that takes us up to the chimney and the Strand cottage. Quite a steep little path up, and if we just come in here, this is the inner bit of the chimney that goes all the way up there. We're going to get a better view of the chimney in a minute when we come up here. So we're coming up onto the ruins of...
Can I just say something while I'm still recording? I have let people know on my video to go and check out Visualising Wales, because all the history channels that you guys want to watch are going to be on there, and take a look at mine as well. Just wanted to let you know.
Are you going to mention the name of your channel?
It's just my ordinary channel, isn't it?
Yes.
Practically Perfect Pictures is my channel. I don't know why I forgot that. Sorry.
Oh. Here's the back of the chimney, and through the trees there we can see the factory, and here we are at the Strand cottage. Low stone walls are all that remain today to show the footprint of a whitewashed stone cottage built in the 1700s for the watchman of the copper works. Strand cottage consisted of 4 rooms. The front door led straight into the living room, where most of the cooking was done. On the large fireplace, a door to the right of the fireplace led to the main bedroom. This was a large room taking up the full width of the house. On the opposite side of the fireplace towards the back wall was another door which led to a little kitchen. A further door led to a small bedroom. Sometime after the Second World War, Cynthia Roberts lived in the cottage with her family and remembers a big dresser that faced you as you entered the room, covered with crockery. The large fireplace went right up to the ceiling with a high mantelpiece. There was an oven and a boiler either side with a little tap for getting hot water. Good times were had listening to the wireless radio of an evening. The railway ran along the back of the cottage, and Cynthia remembers the house shaking when a train went past and pots rattling in the cupboard. The cottage stood directly behind the tall chimney stack, which you can still see. I've just shown you guys. The chimney was used to extract fumes from the copper smelting works. Ducts supported by brickwork went underground to the chimney. This photo shows another past resident. Doreen is standing in the doorway of the Strand cottage. From left to right, the windows were the small bedroom, the doorway, and the large bedroom. Water was brought to the cottage from a standpipe in the battery row, which had to be carried over the dam wall to the house. as the well was no longer in use. Willie John, Doreen's father-in-law, and a joiner built a false wall to keep the damp at bay, helped by his grandson Keith. I think this might be the doorway here, so I'm assuming this bit here would be the small bedroom. Sort of coming this side of, I'm assuming like this side of the wall would be the small kitchen, and then this would have been the living room with the large bedroom just over there. So that's it guys for Greenfield Valley Heritage Park. The next place to see is St Winifred's, well,